Hello, everyone. This is Keith Stone with the Center for Hellenic Studies, and I'm here again with Greg Nagy and Sarah and Elen and Janet for HeroesX office hours for version 11 of HeroesX. And we're talking today about the discussion questions for hours 7 and 8. And I'll read them both. They're very short. In this case, for hour 7, the question is, if no pictures had survived showing Achilles, would you think differently about this hero? And for 8, have the pictures showing Patroklos complicated, or have they simplified your understanding of this hero? But back to the pictures about Achilles. What did folks have to say about their influence?
I'll open. There was a very nice quote from Simonides. Painting is silent poetry, but poetry is talking pictures. One of the participants opened
Nice.
comment like that. And visual chaos.
That's nice.
Nice. Oh, beautiful. Wow. Yeah.
Geometries.
Lovely. Lovely.
How about another? Sounds like you were done with that one, Janet. So
Yeah. Well, there's another comment from a participant, and to him, looking at the hero on the vase painting makes him understand what it means to be to hit the ground running.
Oh, nice. Nice. Nice.
In that scene on the chariot.
Nice.
And he thinks that the visual art preserves something that Greeks of the 5th and 6th century could still understand through the ritual games because they were closer.
Beautiful. Especially if they were Athenians, because Athenians felt that they owned the heroic age. They were always so much more arrogant than everybody else in a funny way. And that's absolutely right. Their athletic festival actually was reenacting what was happening under the walls of Troy, so to speak, in the heroic age. It's an amazing mindset, isn't it?
there's something that comes up, maybe only in conversation, maybe in the book, I forget exactly. I'm sorry about that, but about how Athens controls the territory in this age that we're talking about when the vases were produced, or near controls the territory around Troy.
Yes, exactly. So in a way, if you're going to take a pilgrimage there on the plain of Scamander and look at the walls of Troy, you would be on Athenian territory. Amazing.
No wonder they co-opt this this Trojan scene. So.
Oh my God, yes. Yeah.
So there's another comment about, for us more as a modern audience, seeing the vase paintings without the context of the poetry that exists from that time. We'd have a much harder time understanding what is being depicted, what's going on. Whereas although these vase paintings aren't quote unquote illustrations of the Iliad or of our Iliad, we do have at least more of a context to understand those vase paintings.
Beautifully said. Do you sense that people were defamiliarized by those pictures of Achilles? And we didn't really, our team didn't really emphasize this, but pictures where Achilles is shown having a beard, as distinct from other visual representations where he is beardless and long-haired.
I'm trying to think, does the poetry of the Iliad ever mention his facial hair status?
Well, not his facial hair, but no.
His long hair or his blonde hair.
He has long hair, which implies that he's beardless. And you know, this is this strange thing that in the Iliad, the Achaeans as a fighting group, as a military force, are the boys of the Achaeans, the Kouroi Achaion. They're boys. and you say, wait a minute, how can they be boys? If you think of especially movie versions, they're bearded men. Some of them look middle-aged. Certainly, some of them are middle-aged, and some of them are old, like Nestor. So come on, but there is this myth that's tied to hero cult, which is that even the Achaeans did not start wearing, shall we say, short hair, did not become adult until Achilles died. And then they all cut their hair. In the Iliad, only the Myrmidons, that is to say, only the subgroup of Achaeans who are under the command of Achilles, only they cut their hair, all of them, when Patroklos dies. But I think in other versions, you could have everybody going around with long hair until Achilles dies. It's all very strange, and clearly in the 5th century there are, and even some cases in the 6th century, there are plenty of situations where Achilles himself is represented as bearded and short-haired, like other fighting men would be looking like in the 5th century. Because after all, in the classical period, the only male warriors who would still be wearing long hair are the Spartans, nobody else.
Mm-hmm. What about when he kills the Amazon? I think he's got a beard.
Yes,
Right?
he does. Yes, he does. And I was thinking of that particular picture. It's such a beautiful picture. It's horrific, but beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think the participants have been inspired by the vase paintings. I think they've been doing a bit of research for
Good.
other paintings that they found as well. One example that someone's mentioned is there's a vase painting with him as a child with Chiron.
It's amazing. Yes.
And there's another one where he's bandaging Patroklos.
Yes, that bandaging scene is another marvel. So you see so many different angles. And could I mention one other thing? This has to do with my recent adventures of the mind, and as reflected in Classical Inquiries, as edited by our colleague Keith Stone. And that is what art historians call the Achilles Painter.
Mm.
Achilles Painter is a 5th century artist who lived in Athens and who is best known for a truly beautiful portrait of Achilles that is so overpowering that art historians have dubbed the painter, whose name we don't know, the Achilles Painter. And all you have to do, dear participants, is go to Google and go to Google Images and then type Achilles Painter, and you'll see the painting, the Achilles painting, after which the Achilles painter, the anonymous one who never wrote his name down, is named.
Maybe we can link to that in the metadata, as it were, to this video.
I think that would be a very good idea. I find it just a wonderful experience to go to Google Image. There's so much out there from the ancient world, and some of our colleagues can help the participants who want to filter, well, what kind of things can I take out of Google Images and use for free and without having to worry about paying fees? Because there are ways of doing that as well. I'm a sort of slow user, so I'm not good at talking about it, but we have colleagues who can.
Mm-hmm. That little tab about usage rights or something like that.
Exactly. I always have trouble finding it, but there is that wonderful tab which activates the filter, and then what you get is a repertoire of pictures. I apologize to Hélène for saying repertoire instead of saying it the proper French way. The repertoire of pictures that are not fee-based.
Mm-hmm. You said it beautifully, Greg.
Well, the actual way.
But
I love these words that are borrowed from French, and then in a way they're just stuck in amber. My favorite, of course, is performance, where it comes from medieval French, but in modern French, it's not used anymore. So now there's a franglais word, performance.
mm.
So how about hour 8?
Let's go to our
Which is pictures again, but Patroklos.
Yes.
Of the picture showing Patroklos, complicated or simplified? Your
Yeah.
understanding. What have folks been saying here?
Well, while we're getting the ball rolling, could I say that from my point of view, they complicate the matter, but in a beautiful way. It makes it even more exciting. So I just love the visual art component of understanding Greek mythology and combining the visual art and the verbal art, and understanding that you can't just say that visual art is a reportage of verbal art, but is something that has a life of its own. That's just so exciting. It's like bringing in not just one new world, but a whole set of new worlds, because there's such variety in the pictures, there's such variety in the visual art, just as there's variety in the verbal art.
They are so complementary to each other.
Yes, beautifully.
Mm-hmm. But the vase painting is limited because of the space. I mean, you know, there's...
Yes, and not only the space, but it really gets me the curvature of the surface.
Mm.
And it's so different to see something in rollout format. That's what art historians call it, where you just take everything on the curvature and then flatten it out and see what you get. But that results in distortion, just as there's distortion in looking at a painting on a curvature. At any time you look at it, you have to be facing exactly what you're looking at, because a little bit over to one side or another side, there's distortion. So there's always the challenge of distortion, and distortion is part of the art.
Yes, one participant doesn't really find it easy, because she does not really recognize the anger of Patroklos on the vase painting, where when he is represented as a little winged figure. And she says in the Iliad, he is not that angry. I mean, you know, he is a very lovable and nice person.
Yes,
so,
yes. Yes. Sometimes some of these emotions are very difficult to capture, and you're so right, Hélène, that anger in particular is not an easy emotion to represent in the visual arts, unless somebody has a scrunched up face. Yeah. And in a way, wouldn't you say that anger, when you see it in a picture, would make the viewer upset, or could make the viewer upset? So instead of anger, what can you see sometimes but outrage? It's somebody is doing something that is outrageous, that provokes your own anger as you're looking at the picture. And I'm having in mind here, for example, those horrible pictures showing the Achaeans sacrificing the Trojan princess Polyxena.
Mm.
And it's just horrifying to look at. You're angry to see it.
Mm.
But in a sense, where's the anger that drives it? You could also say, well, it's the angry spirit of Achilles. That's one version of the myth. And they're making a human sacrifice because they're appeasing the angry spirit of Achilles. but in a sense, where is the anger coming from? It's a force field, and the viewer can experience it from a different angle than shall we say, the cause of the reaction to the anger.
So would that explain why we can describe the psyche of Patroklos as having that kind of reaction, whereas all the things that, and one of the participants has picked out a number of sections where Patroklos is described as gentle by gods, by Briseis, by the narrator, and so that's not the image we initially have of him. We don't think of him as somebody who would have anger. But then we've also talked about him as being some sort of reflection of Achilles, or some sort of body double for Achilles.
Yes. So in a sense, we need this twinning of Achilles into two parts: the kinder, gentler side, and then the more cruel and even beastly side, in order to understand how one hero can go through all of these different emotions and actually go from cruel to kind, from bestial to civilized, civil, in within the space of one narration, whether it's visual or verbal. It's quite a psychic trip, isn't it?
Every time I read through your book, Greg, for the sake of a semester in which we teach heroes, I am crying at some point, because the material that is analyzed there is so full of emotion. A psychic trip, as you put it. That's a great saying.
It's so true, and that intensity of emotion sort of comes out in different ways, and depending on the angle of viewing, depending on the moment of a very long sequence of moments. And it's no wonder that Aristotle, when he's thinking not only of tragedy but also epic, because he thinks of epic, especially the Iliad, as a kind of perfect tragedy, no wonder that Aristotle talks about catharsis, about a purging of our own emotions as we come into contact with this very intense emotional world of heroes that goes every which way if we follow it through, and it's exhausting. It's exhausting.
Would that also come about from a visual connection? Because one of the participants is actually asking, is there some sort of analogy, a visual sema of the vase painting as Kleos is to epic, and there's a sort of an immortality and that emotional reaction of the person listening and the person viewing?
Yes, yes. Oh, I think so. And imagine one of these works of art at your own home, so to speak, being the centerpiece, and every time you entertain, or every time you're just alone or with your family or your loved ones, it's there as an object that radiates a story, or shall we say a set of stories that you've lived with all your life, and that different generations will be making contact with at home, because it's at home.
Especially when the figures are looking out, as they do in some cases.
Oh yes, and
the painted figures are looking straight at you as the viewer.
And that is clearly an exercise in subjectivity. It's where if a character is in profile, then it's a third person narrative. But if a character suddenly looks out at the viewer, then the I-you exchange replaces the he, she, it, they dimension, and it becomes a direct contact between the heroic world and our world. And, you know, it's something that's analogous in verbal art. And it only happens to 3 people. And at the moment, I can't think of the third one. I will in a minute. But it's where the storyteller is addressing a hero, saying, and then your end was near, Patroklos, instead of, and then Patroklos's end was near. That means that the spirit of the hero is actually part of the, I don't want to say audience, because audience makes the people who hear it too passive. It's part of the group that is engaged in the performance. So I'm substituting group for performance, for audience here. You see what I'm trying to say is that in a sense, the world of heroes, including the gods, the whole world is part of the group that participates in the performance that you hear at the moment of performance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it can be a pretty strong message. Just like when the princess, the Trojan princess, looks at the ground. She's
Yes.
not, yeah, she's not looking at you. She's not looking straight ahead or on the side. She's looking at the ground because she knows what's going to happen.
Yes, beautiful.
Mm.
And in general, I think that's what is such a marvel about the world of heroes, which is that whenever we make contact with it, it envelops you. The performance is not something that involves a passive audience. You know, here I am listening to something that's happening on a stage which is far removed. No, I'm part of the action. Similarly, when you view a picture, you're not, just as in the world of audio, it's not that you're the audience. You're part of the group, of the grouping that's everything. So also visually, you're not a passive viewer. Oh, I'm looking at a picture, but you're drawn into the picture. And my dear late colleague Emily Vermeulen used to say that even the window effect that you see in paintings, the fact that many paintings don't just spread all over the curvature, but are framed within a window that is only like this, is a way of looking into the world of heroes. And then the question is the viewer on the outside looking in, or is the viewer already on the inside looking out into the world of heroes? You can look at it both ways.
Mm-hmm.
There's an emotional response when you are looking at the pottery, when you're seeing Hector on the ground, or when you're seeing Priam and Hecuba's hands. You feel the pain, you give an emotional response right away.
Yep. So it's a wonderful world.
Well, that's a good note to end on.
Yes, it is a wonderful world. Yes.
Before we get sucked back into the world of terror and the rest.
Yeah.
So let me thank you for joining me again. And I can't wait to talk with you next time about hours 9 and 10, and that will be the beginning of the Odyssey at that point.
Another world, but in a way the same world.